about the way that we produce food in this country, how sustainable it is, and where we're going to be 30 years from now. And after reading that book, I said to myself, I need to learn how to grow my own food. It's something that I want to do, but at the same time, I feel like I need to do it. Not only in a psychological way, you know, that sense of having a connection to your food system and what you're eating and putting into your body, but just in terms of the future, food security is going to be a huge issue in the next 50 years, and growing food is a skill that I wanted to have. So in that book, she also talks about WWOOFing, and so that was how I first heard about it, and I knew that by volunteering on an organic farm through this WWOOFing organization, I could learn how to grow my own food. And over spring break, I dug up our backyard and planted my own vegetable garden. So I now am officially eating food that I've grown with my own hands. So it took me 3 years to get to that point, but I've WWOOFed 3 times, and each time I've learned a little bit more, and so that's helped me gotten to where I am today. So WWOOFing is WWOOF. It stands for Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. So these 3 bullet points are straight off of the WWOOFing website. And it just describes what exactly WWOOFing is. It's essentially a network of people interested in organic farming and organic farms. So they're kind of like, they're a network that connects farms with people. That's really all they are. It's just a website. And they're kind of like a database of farms all over the world that grow organically. So all they do is they link people that are interested in volunteering with these farms. And it's an exchange. It doesn't really cost anything. You go to the farm and work for a certain amount of time every day, and in exchange you get food, accommodation, a chance to learn about organic farming. And so the way you do it, and I'm going to go into more step-by-step how you become a WWOOFer later in the presentation, but you register online and they send you a directory. This is for just the farms in the United States. So you can see it's pretty thick. And there's just farms after farms after farms in almost every state in the US. And each one is unique. And each one is looking for something a little different. Some say we can take volunteers that have no experience. Some say they want people that have skills. So the cool thing about WWOOFing is how diverse it is, and it's all over the world, and you can really find a farm that fits what you're looking for, what you want to get out of it, if you look hard enough. Yes, go ahead.
Can you pass that around?
Absolutely. So, like I said, I've WWOOFed 3 times, and what I want to do is just talk about each of my experiences to kind of give you a sense of what it's like to WWOOF. Each of my experiences was extremely different from the other, and I think it just really shows how diverse WWOOFing can be. You're never going to have the same experience because every farm, you know, all over the world is going to be different. And I know my experiences were very different from each other. So this will just give you a little taste of what it is like to WWOOF. So my first WWOOFing experience was at a farm called Light Morning in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And the best way I would describe my experience was, so Light Morning is a farm, but it's part of what's called an intentional community. And this is the cool thing about WWOOFing, is that you learn all these new things that you never would learn before. So an intentional community is a group of people, kind of like a cooperative, that are committed to living with a common goal and a common purpose. So this intentional community had about 5 families. It was started by these 2 people back in the 70s, and they've been there ever since. And so they raise their children there, other families have come and gone, and they produce all their food together. They pool all of their resources, they pool all of their income, they share cars, they share, you know, basically everything, and they live intentionally. So that's an intentional community. But they also had a pretty big garden where they grew all of their food, and they're actually able to grow half of everything that they ate. So they didn't grow grains or rice, but half of their diet for the entire year they grew themselves. So they also canned and were able to eat, even throughout the winter. So first thing about woofing, it's kind of like, in a way, it's almost like Craigslist, because not anybody can put their farm on the website, but almost anybody. I mean, they do like a small background check, but you can find lots of different farms. So this one actually had a website, and that's when you look at the farm, if they have a website, or it just provides, or they can send you pictures, it provides like a little more credibility. And maybe at the end, if we have time, I can show you the website. And so when I was looking through that book, I saw this farm, and I was like, okay, they have a website, they seem like, really, really cool people. I love this idea of intentional community, and so that's why I went there. So these are the two people that started it. This is what the kitchen looks like. So this place is absolutely incredible. They don't use any electricity at all. They have a wood stove. They don't have running water. But the coolest thing about this place is that you would think, okay, they don't have electricity, it seems like they're living in the dark ages, but they use technology in the smartest, most sustainable way. So it was modern and yet so sustainable and environmentally friendly. So here's the kitchen. You can see we had a dishpan here, so we'd have to bring in the water from outside, which came from a well. For the shower, they had the shower in the basement, and it was gravity fed. So it went, from the first floor just by gravity down to the basement. So you turn on the tap, and the water would come out, even though it didn't require any electricity to do that. So that was just really cool. So this is what their garden looked like. And I was there in March, so they didn't have too much growing yet. And there's the house. That's like the main house. And then they had, where the other families live, their house is like a 10-minute walk distance all around this area. And so you can see they have solar panels. So they had Wi-Fi. They had computers. Obviously they had a website, but it was all run on solar energy. So I just think that's really cool. When I went there, it's the first time I ever heard the term peak oil. I don't know if you guys have heard that before, but basically means we've already used up half the oil. We're at the peak kind of, and everything else from now on is just like a downward spiral in a sense. So they, just being around that kind of dialogue was just incredible. I learned so much about what it means to use technology to be sustainable and how it's possible. So what I did each day, I worked for about maybe 5 hours out in the garden, doing some weeding, getting the beds ready to be planted. They put cover crops over the beds, which basically just means crops that you grow during the winter to keep the soil healthy. So we were moving the cover crops. This was lunch that we made one day. So that's another thing. When you're woofing, you learn so many other things. You learn about organic gardening, but I learned how to cook without electricity. I learned how to cook over a wood stove. That's such an incredible skill and not something that you'd find in a lot of places. I don't have a picture of it, but in their basement, they just have a wall of canned fruits and vegetables that they can themselves. And apples that they've harvested. So like I said, even in the dead of winter, they can feed themselves off of food that they grew themselves. And I just think that's amazing. So they had a composting toilet, which I thought was really, really cool. I took a picture of it. You had to you add a scoop of it's kind of like sawdust to it after you use the bathroom. You don't flush it or anything. And it just compost. It doesn't even smell though. I walked into the bathroom and it looks like a bathroom that you'd see in anybody's house, but it's a composting toilet, and just another way that they're using modern technology to be sustainable. So this was my first woofing experience, and it was absolutely incredible. I learned so much. And then after woofing here in Virginia, I was like, okay, woofing is awesome. I want to go like somewhere outside of the United States. And I've always really wanted to go to Nepal. I love the mountains and I love hiking. So the summer after my freshman year, I just really, really wanted to go to Nepal, and I was going to find a way to get there. And so I looked at a lot of organizations online, and the problem is that, you know, even to volunteer abroad, it's expensive. But something like WWOOFing, all you need is a plane ticket to get there. And you know, once you get there, your food is provided, you know, board is provided, everything else is provided for you, so you can just go and, you know, experience another country for really cheap. Oh, this is, they had a meditation room too at this farm in Virginia, which was really cool. And so they meditated every morning. That was my first exposure to meditation. So just another example of how WWOOFing can expose you to new things. So, Nepal. A way to describe my second WWOOFing experience, first of all, it was a lot different. I have your culture shock, language barriers, the difference between what you expect and what actually happens, and learning how to be flexible. So that's how I would summarize my second WWOOFing experience. It was completely different than the first one, but still so beneficial and so unique and really changed me as a person. So again, just to emphasize, every farm is different. No two WWOOFing experiences are going to be the same. But I guarantee that no matter where you go, you're going to learn something, whether it's about farming or about yourself or about the world. So I go onto the WWOOF Nepal website, and I found this farm that looked awesome because they grew medicinal plants. And I want to be a doctor, so I was like, this is incredible, this is perfect. So I emailed them, and I was emailing them back and forth, and we had like strong communication. So I was like, okay, this is great. I know where the farm is. I'm going to fly to Nepal. I bought my plane ticket. I looked up the farm on Google Maps. They didn't have a website. But since I've been communicating with this guy, I was like, okay, you know, I have good feelings about this. It's not too far from the airport. Everything's going to be fine. So things don't go as planned, especially in a country like Nepal, which for those of you who don't know, it's a little country right northeast of India. So I get to the airport, and basically the farm didn't look too far away from Kathmandu, which is like the capital. But in a country where there's mostly dirt roads, they're one lane, and the bus breaks down, you could be, you know, stuck for literally hours, if not days. So to get to this farm, basically I had to take a 12-hour bus ride to get there. So I get there, and this is just I spent some time in Kathmandu, so this is what the city looks like, just to give you a sense. That's more of like the countryside. It's an absolutely beautiful country. So I get there, and this is at the first farm that I went to. I was repping UD. And they were really, really nice people, but like I said, expectations and reality. So where they lived, and of course they didn't tell me this, was about 10 miles away from where their farm was. And their farm was huge, and it was awesome. I got to go there and like see what they were growing, and this guy, he's a doctor, and like he knows everything about like natural medicine. So he was like incredibly smart, but he didn't speak English. So that's another thing, language barriers. I didn't realize this, but the person that I had been communicating with was his son, and so, you know, I thought I was like going to learn directly from this doctor who knew so much about natural medicine, but no, he doesn't speak any English. So, you know, I get there and I'm like meeting them and it's great, and they're like, okay, yeah, well, you're going to stay at the farm, you know, because it's like 10 miles back and forth, and we just have the one motorcycle and we need that. So I was like, okay. And they're like, and this is where you would stay, and you'd be there by yourself. And I was like, okay. I'm starting to have second thoughts about this. So, and they really wanted me to stay. Like, they were so nice, and they were really cool. You know, they cooked this whole big meal, and they were like, we're so excited to have an American here. Like, this is gonna like put our farm on the map, because they had had maybe 2 WWOOFers, I think, before. So they, you know, were just and they weren't Americans. I think they were from Europe. But they were just really excited to have me there, and I was like, okay, this isn't what I expected at all. So thankfully, I had a connection in Kathmandu, a local family there, and so thankfully I was able to get back. I was like, look, you guys are really nice, but this is just not what I expected. So I was able to go back to Kathmandu and go back to the WWOOFing directory for Nepal and find another farm that was just outside of Kathmandu. And so I went there and I was like, oh, all right, let's see what happens. I really wanted to woof, and I still wanted to make the most of my experience. So I go to this other farm and it's awesome. And again, like woofing, it's gonna be an amazing experience no matter what, even if it's not what you expect. So I get to this other farm, and it was a family of 5. They had 2 daughters that were my age, and they were in university, and they spoke English, but their parents didn't. But it was really cool having 2 girls my age that spoke English, so I was happy. They had this is part of their farm, and they do this as their lifestyle. So they just grow vegetables and sell it, and that makes them enough money to get by. So I got there and I was like, this is awesome. So I ended up staying there, and we'd be out in the farm like harvesting vegetables pretty much every day. It was my first time I'd ever seen an asparagus. And it looks like a little Christmas tree. Like asparagus growing doesn't look like what you would expect. And they just come right out of the ground. And if you let them keep growing, they start to grow branches. And it looks like a little fir tree or something. But so they had this like huge, they're like apparently known for like their organic asparagus. Like they grow all of this asparagus. And so their daughters would go to school during the day. So I'd be out there with their mom and like 3 other women from the community, and they're all speaking in Nepali, and we're just out there harvesting asparagus, and I'm like, I just feel like that stupid tourist, because I'm like trying to pick the asparagus, and it's really, really hard, and every time I would try to get it out of the ground to harvest it, I would end up snapping off the top, and they would all kind of look at me and say something in Nepali and laugh. And I was like, all right, I need to figure this out. I need to prove to them that I can do this. And so, I'd be out there every day in the hot sun. It was hot. It was like really, really hot. And there were a lot of bugs. But I'd be out there with them every day, harvesting asparagus or, harvesting the other vegetables that they had out there. And, after a couple of days, we just had this connection. And that was really, really cool, because at a certain point, I felt like I earned their respect. Even though we didn't speak the same language. And it was a really, really good feeling. So overall, I learned a lot about the culture. I learned a lot about myself. I learned about the world. In America, time is like so important. Being on time is like crucial. In most other parts of the world, they just kind of like do things when they want. Nothing's predictable. Well, not nothing, but in my experience, things are not as predictable. They don't meet your expectations. But in the end, everything worked out, and I learned like some of the most valuable lessons I've ever learned while I was there. Again, like overcoming the cultural barriers, though, that's a process. No matter where you go in the world, like they would feed me a lot. Like they treat guests really, really well, and so they would feed me like 5 times a day. And I would try to say I'm not hungry, but it's rude if you like don't finish what's on your plate. So I just remember and the food was incredible, but I just remember like force feeding myself. I didn't want to like upset them or anything, but I also got to help the mom like cook, so I got to learn how to make like some Nepali dishes, which was really cool. And I picked up some of the language while I was there. So there's me out in the farm. This was their dad. They had a couple cows and a goat. And so that's their mom, who I was out there picking asparagus with. And their 2 daughters and some neighbors. And that's what the inside of their house looked like. All right, so my third woofing experience, especially compared to what Nepal was, it was like absolute paradise. I went to Costa Rica last summer at a farm called Cabañas Siempre Verde, and right away I knew it was going to be a different experience than Nepal because the farm had a website. And that's like a good sign, you know, for any farm. If they have a website or if they can, like, you know, send you something online, especially if you're going to another country, so you get a sense of like what the farm is like, that's always a good sign. So Costa Rica was definitely my favorite woofing experience. One, there were other woofers there. So this farm had, the 3 weeks that I was there, between like around eight other volunteers from all over the world. So this guy, Harry, was from Germany, and he basically just like travels the world. And he was leaving Costa Rica to like sail to Singapore. He's like crazy, but so cool. So like just meeting other woofers was an incredible experience. This was the porch. So that's kind of like what we would just look out, and that's everything that you could see. It was absolutely beautiful. So that's like the view from their porch. This is the kitchen. It's an outdoor kitchen. That was the table where we ate. They had a refrigerator, so they had electricity. But yeah, this is where we would cook all of our meals. They had some animals. So this farm was a family, parents, and then their son, who was about 25, and then their daughter. And so their son, they've had the farm for a long time, but their son went to college, and at first he was an English teacher, and he learned a little bit about business while he was in school, and he knew that, you know, the farm that his parents had was a way for them to kind of get by, but he wanted to kind of like take the farm, not to the next level, but he wanted to expand it and make it really fiscally sustainable. So he made the website, he put it on the WWOOFing website, and started getting volunteers from all over the world to come stay at the farm. He actually also ran like a side business teaching Spanish classes. So some people would come. It was kind of like ecotourism. Like he had a family come and stay, and he would like give them Spanish classes every day, and they got to like ride the horses and just hang out. But the volunteers, we actually had to like do work every day. So the project that I worked on while I was there was constructing this greenhouse. So this is kind of like halfway through the project, but what it's made out of, I think I have a closer picture, is bamboo poles. So it was so cool. We would walk out to this field and actually cut down bamboo with like a machete. And then we would like strip off all the branches and measure it, and we had like a saw, and we would cut it to the right size, and we just like constructed this framework and then put plastic over it. And so that was just so cool. Like when you talk about using local sustainable technologies, like we walked 5 minutes away to a field and cut down the bamboo that we were going to use to build this. And I know that's not like applicable to everywhere in the world, but just like using resources that are within your bioregion, I think is really cool. So this is what it looked like in the inside. And so what we did, what I did and the other volunteers was dig beds. And so you're probably wondering like why Costa Rica would you need a greenhouse? It's hot all the time. So it's actually to keep, it's not really a greenhouse, there's no other word for it, but it's actually to keep the rain out, because it rains so much, especially during like the rainy season, obviously. So that it was to grow vegetables that require more of a drier climate. So there we are digging the beds, and like one thing about woofing, it is hard work. So you know, it's not a vacation. You're actually going to be, you know, depending on where you go and what agreement you work out with the farm, you know, you could be working anywhere from like 4 to 8 hours every day doing manual labor. But to me, like, this is something that I love, so it didn't seem like hard work, but you're going to get your hands dirty. You're going to be actually working. So we measured out the beds. We had to dig them. And then this is at the end, so this is a better picture. We dug the beds. We cut more bamboo, and we're able to make, like sides for them. These holes in the middle were for growing cucumbers. And some of the other activities that I did, like, this is pineapple, we planted this. We'd go out into like the forest and harvest yucca. It grows in the ground. And so we'd be out there like in the forest, and Marcos, that's the name of their son, he'd be out there with a machete just like cutting down like branches off of trees to clear the way, and then we'd stop and he would like pull out something out of the ground. To me it looked like a stick, but he'd pull it up and there'd be a yucca, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. It kind of tastes like potatoes almost. They're really, really good. And I'd never seen what a pineapple plant looked like. So just like being exposed to all of this and like learning, I don't know, just how to grow food. It's just such a cool experience. So we had to get compost to put in the beds, and again, not glamorous work. We went down to where they kept the horses and dug up the horse manure, loaded it into these bags, and then went with the horse back to where our little greenhouse was. This is Kate. She was from Sweden. She was another volunteer. Bananas, and then we took that compost that you saw and put it into the beds. They also had, so I don't know if you can see that tin roof, that's one of the bathrooms. So outdoor bathrooms is cool, like I don't know if you think it's cool, but you're sitting and like you can just see out. There's no door, no walls. You can just look out and see like paradise. So there are a lot of different activities that we did every day. So I think she was chopping down something, but some farms require some experience, most of them don't, but every farm is different. You're going to be doing different things. These are called manzanas de agua, which is basically like water apples, but we climb up in the tree and pick them and eat them. The volunteers also had to cook the meals every day. So that was like one of our responsibilities, and we take turns, but that was also really cool, like learning how to make Costa Rican food. It was good practice. This is Marcos's mom, and so I'd go in the morning around 6 and help her milk the cows so that we could have milk with our breakfast. And that was cool too. I'd never milked a cow before. Making empanadas. So these are some of the other volunteers that were there when I was there. So again, like your living conditions are going to be different depending on where you go, but more or less no matter where you go, it's not going to be anything like luxurious at all. So like this is in one of the buildings. We actually slept outside, but huge cockroach. So this was like this was actually a guest house for like families that would come and stay. Like I said, he taught English classes. So we didn't stay here. All the volunteers slept in a cabana, which I'll explain in a second. But as you can see here, like we're hanging up our laundry to dry. No washing machine. You do your laundry, that's a sink right there. So you do your laundry outside, hang it up to dry. I just wanted to give you a sense of like how diverse the living conditions could be. But again, to me, like I think that's awesome because it's just so simplistic and I love it. So woofing may be for you, it may not be for you. This is kind of hard to see, but this is a cabana. It's basically like a raised platform, and there's like a roof over the top, and then there's mattresses in there, and that's where we slept. And there would be like mosquito netting over it. And you raise it up off the ground because Costa Rica is so wet. And so that's where we slept every night, and it was really cool just like laying and listening to all the sounds. That's what the upstairs would look like, so sleeping under the mosquito netting. And I just wanted to like close with Another cool thing about WWOOFing, especially if you go to another country, is like it's a cultural exchange. You're gonna learn about the culture. You're gonna meet other people. So I got to practice my Spanish so much while I was there. We had a pizza night one night and like invited over all the neighbors. And it was a tiny little town, but like you got to know everyone that lived there. That's the oven where we cooked the pizza. And this was like one of the coolest experiences ever. While I was there, in August, like in a lot of countries in Latin America, they have a patron saint. And there's a tradition in some countries to make a pilgrimage on a specific day of the year to a certain church to like pay homage to the patron saint. So I happened to be there. I had no idea that this was going on while during this day where they make the pilgrimage. And people come from all over Costa Rica. And some people walk barefoot. Some people do the entire thing on their knees because it's considered like, you do it to show gratitude to God. And so if you walk the whole thing barefoot, you're making kind of like more of a sacrifice. So it was 130 kilometers, which is about 80 miles, and we did it in 24 hours. So we left around 10 o'clock at night, walked all through the night, all the next day, and by 10 p.m. the next night, we got to Cartago, which is where this really huge famous church is. And so we're just about to get into San Jose, and at first, we're walking through the forest, and it's pitch black, and walking, like, we even had to cross a couple rivers, and we finally get to San Jose, which is like the main city, and then there was like another 50 miles. Those are my feet at the end. It's kind of gross, but it rained for like half the time, so we were soaked. And then we get there and we're exhausted, but there's just like thousands of people that have come from all over Costa Rica to this church. And like I never thought that I would do that, but I happened to be there, and I was WWOOFing, but I still had those opportunities to learn about the culture and just experience what it's like to live there. All right, so now I'm going to get...
Do you want to do a quick Q&A? Because I actually just found my hard drive with my pictures on it, so I was going to show them some pictures.
Okay. Yeah, so any questions so far? Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, for each of your trips, when did you go, like in relation to the school year, and how long did you stay?
So the first time I actually went during spring break to Virginia, and then Nepal I went to over the summer. I was there for 5 weeks, and then Costa Rica I was there for 3 weeks, and I went over the summer. Yeah.
So how much did it cost you, basically, for each of those trips?
Virginia, nothing. Gas to get there, maybe like $30. Nepal, plane ticket is the majority of what I spent. I also did some trekking while I was there, but if I hadn't have done anything else, it would have cost me maybe like $1,500. The plane ticket's like, I don't know, $1,400. But just like, like little things like buses, transportation, that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know, food. Not for while you're at the farm, but just like while you're traveling. Costa Rica, maybe like, I also did some traveling too, so it's hard to say, but the plane ticket was like $300 or $400, and then, like, we would go out sometimes, like we went to the beach, so I would spend money then, but you can do it, if you want to be really economic about it, you can do it on a very tight budget, and basically just pay for your transportation to get there. Any other questions? Yeah.
So how did you navigate from the airport to the location?
So in Costa Rica, it was easy because I speak a little Spanish. Not easy, but it was easier relatively compared to Nepal. So I would just, ahead of time, I had emailed and talked to them back and forth, and they had given me directions. But even so, like when you get there, it's a little overwhelming. You have to find out where the bus stops are. So I took a taxi from the airport into like the central downtown San Jose, and then from there, like there are different, it's different for every country, but in Costa Rica there are different bus stops located in different parts of the city. So if you're going to like Puriscal, you might have to walk like 2 miles to get to that bus stop that only that bus goes to Puriscal. So I would be like walking along and I would say, like, where's the bus stop for this bus? So, like, I don't know, speaking the language definitely helps. Yeah, sometimes you just gotta be brave and ask for directions. Yeah.
Did you meet any wolfers who didn't know the language at all? Like they went in, like
Yeah. Yeah. Kate, she was from Sweden. She's actually went to school in the U.S. She was in college, but she grew up like in Europe, and she didn't speak any Spanish at all. And she found the farm okay. It was like a 3-hour bus ride between like from the airport taxi to San Jose, a bus from San Jose to Puriscal, which is like a normal bus. That was about an hour. Then a school bus from Puriscal to Mastetal. And that school bus only ran like twice a day. And then from there, Marcos met me at that bus stop. And then we took another bus to get to the farm. So it's complicated, but it's doable. Like, Kate didn't speak any Spanish, and she found it okay. So the thing is, like, you have to be, no one's like looking out for you. It's not a study abroad. No one's telling you where to go. But like I said, it's such a good experience to learn about yourself. Like, learn those skills, learn that confidence, just navigating on your own. It's worthwhile. Yeah.
For example, in the fall, like, you were the only wolfer there. How did you feel maybe, especially with the language barrier, kind of lonely? Like, you don't have anyone else, like, going through the newness of wolfing, like, with you, alongside you. So how did you feel about that?
Yeah, it was a huge challenge. I kept a journal, and I would write every day. I had a cell phone, but I would use it maybe, like, once a week to call my parents, just because it's so expensive. No computer, no internet or anything. It was really hard. It was a huge culture shock. But if you go into the experience knowing that you're gonna be out of your comfort zone and kind of mentally prepare yourself, it makes it a lot easier. Having the 2 girls that were there that spoke English really, really helped. I brought books and read like in the evenings a lot. But it's really, really challenging, you know, being by yourself. But it's so rewarding at the same time. Like, I learned so much about myself while I was there.
But like, you don't, like, let's say maybe you're going for the first time. You may not like want that for your first time.
Right.
Is that something when you're in contact with a prospective farm? Is that something you talk to them about? Like, can you ask them?
Yeah, of course. Like, when you contact them, like, I always look for like a family because I love kids. So, you know, like, and it'll have that information. They'll either say like, I'm one person or we're a couple, but like, you know, having a family, that might be better for like your first experience. Or you can ask them like, will you have other woofers during this time? Do you normally have other woofers? I would say if you've never traveled outside of the U.S. on your own before, it would be more of a challenge, especially, you know, like going to a place where you might be the only woofer. But yeah, those are all like questions that you can definitely ask the host. Yeah. Anyone else?
So I obviously can't find the pictures from my experience, which makes it sound like it means a lot to me, but it really was a really awesome experience for me as well. So I'll just get this one picture up here, maybe, if I'm not completely inept. Oh, wrong. That's because it's the wrong port. Okay. Okay, so this is my second farm that I went to. Unfortunately, I can't get the website for the first farm to come up. But so this is the second farm. So my experience with woofing was my boyfriend and I had just finished our conservation program that we did, and we were in between like doing that and then on to the next thing. And we had like 3 months that we were like, well, I don't know what we're going to do. And we're like, well, we'll just go woofing. Because we had some friends that had done it and had a really great experience with it. And so we just were like, well, we'll do woofing. And so we were like, well, where do we want to go? Because the world was our oyster, right? So we were like, okay, well, let's just pick a place and travel there and road trip and have a great time. And I was like, well, I have a friend in Washington State. He was like, okay, cool. So we started, like, we got our membership, we went online, we ordered the North America book, and then we started looking at the Washington State farms. And, like, we knew we wanted to work with animals, and that was, like, our big draw. So we started looking through all the places that had animals, and, like, an example was, I was telling Liz, there was a place that wasn't even really a farm. It was like a conservation area that was protecting wolves, and they were like, we were like, yeah, protecting wolves, that'd be awesome. And then in the description it was like, we don't provide food, we don't provide housing, you'll sleep in a tent whether it rains or shines, out in the woods, and you'll have to provide everything, but please come because we'd love to have you. And it's like, okay, well, we're ready for an adventure, but maybe not that much adventure. So we forewent that for the time being. And anyway, so we found this farm, and it was like, we have cows and chickens and whatever. And we're like, okay, great, we'll go do that. The first farm that we read about was called Once in a Blue Moon Farm. So there was a blue theme that we had going on with our farms. But that one was like, we have geese and chickens and hens and llamas and dromedaries and like all these crazy animals. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like, and so we were like, we have to go there. But when we called the lady, she was like, well, why do you want to come here? And we were like, I don't know. You have a bunch of animals. Like, that's what we want to do. And she was like, okay, well, how did you find out about us? And I was like, well, we looked you up in the book. And she was like, okay. So, like, already we were having some, like, weird vibes. And we're like, well, what's going on with this? So we got there, and we found out, like, the place that we went to, we had to, like, go to Seattle and then take a 4-hour ferry ride to get to this island that this farm was on. Because we had never been to this area, so we were like, we don't know anything about it. And it turns out, like, this farm was on, like, the premier island to go vacation to. Like, it was the place to be during the summer. Like, everybody wanted to go to Orcas Island in the Puget Sound. I don't know if anybody is from that area, but if you are, I'm sure you've heard of Orcas Island, because it's like, everybody wanted to be there, so she was suspicious because she had so many people that approached her to be on the farm just because they wanted to be on Orcas Island. And she didn't get a lot of benefits from the people that would come, so she was suspicious of us. So when we got there, she was kind of like, well, I don't really know what you're going to do. We already have an intern. And we were like, okay, well, we're expected to be here for the next 2 weeks. So, you know, we could just bum around your farm for the next few days, but really, like, we want to work. And so, like, she was like, okay, well, and she started to give us kind of piddly stuff. And we were like, well, listen, if you don't need us here, then we'll move on. And she was like, well, I don't really have anything for you to do except if you can, you know, I don't know, work with chainsaws or wood chippers. And we're like, yeah, we can do that. Like, we've got experience doing that, so, like, let us do it. And she was like, really? Like, she immediately fell in love with us. And so she found all this work for us to do, and it was awesome. And, like, you know, we did a bunch of saw work for her and, like, chip a bunch of wood. And, like, it was this amazing farm. It really did have, like, llamas and, not dromedaries, but alpacas and, like, turkeys and geese and guineas and peacocks and, like, every fowl you could imagine was there. And it was this beautiful place that in the dead of winter, so we were doing this in the dead of winter, so it was even beautiful in the winter. And then I wish I could get the website to work. It's called Once in a Blue Moon Farm. Please go check out the website. You won't even believe your eyes. It's beautiful. And so we kind of hung around there for a little bit, but she already had some stuff going on, and there were just some interesting family dynamics that we weren't, like, really keen on. Which is a part of the WWOOFing experience. You will find, like, definitely go to the farms that, like, intrigue your interest, but you'll also find, like, some of them will work for you and some of them won't. So obviously, like, this farm was just not exactly what we were looking for. So the other farm, this farm that we ended up going to, was like, hey, can you come, you know, a little bit early? We're like, yeah, actually that would work great for us because we're kind of looking to get out of here. So we went to the second farm, and this farm was like, so the first farm was like, we'll give you a place to live, but we don't provide any food. And we're like, okay, well, we're broke, so that's good. So we went to the second farm, and they were like, we'll give you a place to live, we'll give you all the beef that we have from cows on our farm, all the chickens, all the lamb, all the pork, all the vegetables that we grow, all the everything, all the blueberries, because the blueberry farm, all the raspberries, pretty much everything that we were wanting. And you'll get free Wi-Fi, you can do your laundry for free. Oh, and by the way, we're going to pay you a little bit too. And we're like, I'm sorry, well, I don't understand that. That's volunteering. We're supposed to be like giving our time to you, and you're going to like give us all this stuff? And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. So it was this wonderful experience. The trade-off was that they were expecting 40 hours of work a week out of us, which, you know, fair enough, and that they wanted a longer commitment. So like woofing, you can kind of come for 2 days and go for 2 days, or stay for a week, or go and say you're going to stay for a week and decide you don't want to. But they were like, no, we really actually want you to like kind of commit for a little bit of time. And we're like, okay, whatever. I mean, you're giving us all this stuff, like it's not really going to be a problem for us. We've been living out of the car for the past 8 weeks, so this is, you know, paradise. And so like some of the work that we did was, let's see if I can get the, so okay, so this is a picture of the farm, and those are the Sierra Mountains that you see in the background, so it really was just a beautiful place. What you can't really see is like there's another like 30 acres over here of just like blueberry plants, and so they had these rows and rows of blueberry plants, and anybody that's from the Pacific Northwest knows that everything grows like crazy in the Pacific Northwest, so the grass was constantly encroaching on the blueberries, and blueberries aren't really competitive plants, so you kind of have to like move the weeds away from them consistently. And so that is a lot of what we did. So there was like just like, I don't know, like 60 rows of blueberries that were like, I don't know, 100 feet long or so. And so we were just constantly like taking this weed matting up and flipping it and like putting it over. And my boyfriend's a machine, and he can just like go all day and like do that. But like by the end of it, I was like laying on the ground kicking my feet like, I don't want to do this anymore, just like give me something else. So what I found is that I love chickens. Love them. They're awesome. I don't know if you've ever gotten a chance to like be around chickens, but seriously, I could sit in a lawn chair, pop a beer, and like watch chickens all day. I mean, they're so entertaining. Like they're kind of, you know, they're just like these prehistoric creatures that just like, I don't know, they just are there. And like the one thing that I love to tell people that nobody really expects to hear is that like chickens are omnivorous. They'll eat anything, so they'll eat meat. We didn't know this, so like my boyfriend and I, we were like getting the hay out for the cows to feed them in the morning, and we found like this mouse that had been like squished up in the hay bale, and we were like, aha, we'll go chase the chickens down with this, right? Like, we'll scare them, right? It would be funny. So like we go up there, we like throw the mouse in, like watch them go like, ah, right? No, like these chickens were crazy. They were like psychotic. They're like, ah, dead mouse, and like so they would like go and like chase it and like rip it apart and like start pecking at it, and then like one would get it and chase and run around the yard with it, and like we seriously watched them for like 30 minutes like trying to tear this mouse apart that we were like, we just thought it was going to be entertaining for us, but apparently it's also entertaining for them. And so like that was interesting, and we got to do different projects. Like so they kind of like were very willing to let us pick and choose what we wanted to do. There was a solar panel project that they had us work on or start to work on, but it was kind of out of our expertise. We weren't electricians, and so they had solar panels that they were like, well, if you want to do this, like we're looking to heat our water with solar panels, but we're not sure how to do that, so feel free to work on that project. And they just kind of like let us pick what projects we wanted to work on. Obviously, I hung out with the chickens a lot. We also like worked with the cows. Actually the very first thing that we did when we got there was they had their cows that just had calves, and so they the calves were with the mothers, but the mothers were very like conditioned to be around people, and they were really excited to be around people, but the calves were really timid, so like they had to like get the calves to be used to people because they were going to be, you know, raised on the farm. So one of the first projects that we had was to like isolate the calves from the mothers and like get them in the barn and like hang out. And so these were calves, but they were like 300-pound calves, right? So like we had to like do the whole rodeo and like lasso them in. And it was really kind of like scary because like we had to get it around their necks and then like essentially just like suffocate them long enough so that they kind of stopped struggling. And then we pulled them out and like put them in the barn, and everything was fine. They were okay. There was no brain damage. They were fine. But there was this point, and it was like a moment where my boyfriend and I looked at each other like, I'm not sure we're cut out for this, where the two farmers were like a man and a wife, and they were running the farm together, and they both had like daytime jobs, but like anyway. So the guy was like a bigger guy, like he was like 6'4" and like, you know, a big, strong, manly man. And so we were like trying to get this 300-pound calf to like get to the barn, right? And there's a moment where the calf just like spooks and like starts running. Well, he's on a rope, and he doesn't really know where he's running, but he just runs between the legs of the farmer. And so like the next thing you see is like this farmer just like bouncing around on the calf. Like it's the craziest thing because it's like it's just a calf, but he's like just taking this 300-pound man for a ride. And so like Mike and I were like, I'm not totally sure that we're really cut out for those kind of work. But we got to work with the calves, and so one of the other rewarding things was like we got to like hang out with the calves like on a regular basis throughout the day. Like they were like, yeah, please just like go in there and sit with them and like be with them and like get them used to people. So I'd like just go in there, and they had a calf already that they had like isolated from somebody or from another mother who wasn't taking care of it, and it had been bottle fed, so it was really used to humans. And he would just like come up to you, and he'd just be like waiting for you to pet him, and he'd like run his head against you. And I had like this hoodie that had like the strings that came down. He thought it was food, so like I'd be like brushing him or petting him or whatever, and like the next thing I knew, I would like look down, and like the string was halfway down his throat. So there was like several moments with like me like pulling this string out of this calf's throat, and like looking at him like, oh, that's good, awesome. Now the other thing is to realize that in these experiences, it's not going to be glamorous. Like you're not going to be living posh. It's you're going to be. We were dealing with poop on a daily basis with the animals. So like chicken poop was everywhere. I'm pretty sure we ingested chicken poop on a daily basis, and we're fine. It's just dirt and grime and grossness just kind of becomes part of your life. So just be prepared for that. And if that's not really what you're looking for, like I'm sure there are farms out there that offer more of a sanitary experience. I don't know what kind of farms they would be, but but they're not going to be farms with animals. I can guarantee that. We did get to learn a lot about composting and a lot about organic farming. They are certified organic, and they spend a lot of money on like getting the certified organic fertilizer that comes from like chicken poop compost, and so like it's very specific, and they have to order it by like the ton because you can't order it in small batches for a farm that size. So and you learn like how much you can apply, or like what the restrictions are on organic farming, like how long land has to sit before it can be considered like okay for organic land. We got to learn a lot about like seed starting and the appropriate ways to do it and the not great ways to do it. And I'm trying to think. There was quite a bit of kind of choose your own adventure with Blue Dog Farm in particular, because they really were just kind of like, well, whatever you want to do here, like, let's let you do it. I don't know, it's kind of like with my experience, we really grew close with the family. They were really awesome. Like we would go in the mornings, we would meet with them, they'd give us our daily objectives, and like we'd sit and have a cup of coffee, and sometimes we'd get into like some of these great pontificating conversations, and we'd like waste half the day away, but part of it was just like getting to know the family and like being part of that family. They're really wonderful. We still even exchange emails, and their two boys, they let us know what's going on with them and how the farm's doing, how the cows are doing, how the chickens are doing, which they're not as excited about the chickens as I am, so they don't really update me so much on the chickens, but I always ask. And I don't know, that's like the benefit of WWOOFing to me, is like you get to go to these places and you get to have these experiences and learn things that even you weren't even expecting to learn. So you can go there and say, okay, I want to learn about raising blueberries. Okay, well, you're going to learn about raising blueberries, but you're also going to learn about like taking care of livestock and starting a greenhouse and working a tractor and selling things. So they had all these chickens, so they had all these eggs that they could sell. And so part of it was like advertising to like get people out to buy the eggs, or like regulating the egg sales. It's kind of crazy, but yeah. So you very much, I definitely encourage you to know what you're looking for when you go into woofing, but also just be a little flexible because it's not going to be exactly what you expect it to be, but I guarantee you'll come out of it with something, even if it's knowing what you don't want to do, which is just as valuable as knowing what you do want to do. So, does anybody have any questions at this point about? Any questions?
How long were you at this farm?
This farm, so we actually went there twice. The first year we were there for 6 weeks, and the second year we were there for 8 weeks. So, yeah.
Did you experience a full season of anything?
Never got to experience a full season because we were doing wildfire fighting during the summer, and so we would go do the woofing over the winter time. But we were also doing a lot of road tripping, so we never got to actually experience like the winter season or like spring. We just got to experience like 8 weeks of like in between.
Did you have to set aside like a certain amount of money for like either of you for these specific locations? I mean, besides just like plane ticket and everything, is it something?
No, but that's only because we're awful with money. So it's advised. It is advised to kind of, however you plan on traveling there, getting there, go ahead and start researching, like, I don't know, if you're planning to drive there, research, you know, how far it is, how long it's going to take you to get there, plan for gas, food, and, you know, the nights that you don't want to sleep in your car, plan like $30 for a motel or something.
No, this farm paid you, which might
not very much. And
not very much, which might not be typical in those farms anyway, but
no.
Would you say there are opportunities like on the weekends to like, I don't know, go through Craigslist and just do some work? Because I would be interested in doing woofing long term, but I want to continue to meet my rent here. So if I could make like $300 a month or something just outside the farm, would you say there's good opportunities for that?
I'm sure there are. We didn't really seek those opportunities. But the thing about that particular farm that paid us, it was a huge farming community, so there was like farms all over the place, and farms always need help. That's what you know. One thing that I will put out there is farms always need help. So you probably easily could have gone to another farm and been like, hey, do you need any help with your livestock today or whatever? And the farmers of Blue Dog Farm are so awesome. They would be totally willing to help you find that extra work or talking to their other farming buddies for any help that you would provide.
Now, you were able to go these places with your boyfriend. Is that typical of many? I guess it's probably just depends on the farm, but there are places where you can go with a person, multiple people. That kind of thing.
In fact, I think that they would really be excited about that. Multiple people, I don't know, because I would imagine they would be a little tentative about a party crowd showing up on their farm and just like taking advantage of them. But both farms were really super excited that there were two of us. So I would say if you wanted to do it with a friend, like yeah, they absolutely would be excited about that.
Yeah, some people even let you bring your kids or your dogs. So you can. A lot of times they'll say it on the little blurb, like no kids allowed, but definitely like a boyfriend or a friend is doable.
Yeah, like the actually Blue Dog Farm. Right before the second time that we went there, they actually had a French family, like a whole family that came and like stayed with them. And so it was like a father, a mother, like a 5-year-old kid, and then like a baby. So and like they like weren't able to take their baby carrier somewhere, and so they didn't have their baby carrier, so they left it there. And we used it for like a fruit storage thing. But yeah, so like they will take multiple people. I know it's kind of weird, huh? But you'll do weird things when you're on these farms. You'll be like, okay, I mean, I didn't wash the eggs that I ate because it was healthier. I know, right? Kind of weird. Chicken poop all over them, dirt all over them.
So there's like a lot of variation of time that you can work on the farm. So my friend and I are going to drive cross country this summer, so we were thinking like it would be good to see if we could go for like a couple days. Is that possible? Can you just go for a couple days, like have a place to stay, and then be on your way?
I'd say it's not it's not really like favorable because like the farms don't, most of them don't want to feel taken advantage of. You know, it's not like just a free place to stay. So like most farms will want you to stay longer, so they're like, you know, investing something in you, whether they're teaching you skills that they're gonna, you know, benefit from. But again, like that's something you could definitely work out with the farm. Most of them will say like in the little blurb, like on the directory, a minimum required stay. It can be anywhere from like a week to 2 months. So I don't know about like just a day or two, but you could easily email them and ask, do you want to task. Even if you said like, you know, can we stay at your farm for 2 days, like we'll pay you just to stay the night or something like that.
No, so like the reason, so I don't think it is like desirable, like they want people to like stay around long enough to like do a project. But the first farm that I went to, like that was something that they experienced a lot, was like woofers would come and like stay a couple days and do some work. But again, like she those weren't her favorite woofers, you know, and typically because they weren't super productive. But if you're gonna show up and like do a lot of work in like a couple of days and like you're excited to do that, you might be able to work something out with a couple of the farms. Also, I've been back and forth across the United States like 10 times at this point, so I've got some really cool places that you should stop and see if you want to talk to me afterwards.
I just want to go through real quick, kind of like a step-by-step on how you would go about doing this. So first of all, you want to think about like where you want to go. Like even if you're going in the U.S., like there are hundreds of farms. So like if you want to go, like narrow it down to one state or a couple of states, narrow it down to like one country. That's the first thing, because you could spend hours looking through all these.
And you will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it really is. You'll hear some crazy things, like read some crazy blurbs.
Yeah. And then you go online. So I had the website up. This is just WWOOF.org. This is you know, the WWOOFing website, but then you can go to regions, and like different regions have their own websites. So like there's a separate WWOOFing website just for the US, and it's like us.woofing.org. So you go, and then you have to buy a membership. Some of the countries let you preview the farms before buying a membership, but most won't let you see anyone's contact information until you buy the membership. So it's like $20, and it lasts for the whole year. So I got that directory from the U.S. membership. Like other countries won't really send you a directory. You just go online, and it's all there. So once you pay your membership, then you can see their contact information, and you can email them. I'm sure you saw it in the book, but like the little blurbs that they have, I mean, they'll range from like
3 words to like 3
a
paragraphs.
page. Yeah, and like we are, you know, some people will go into like their philosophies and what they value and all that kind of stuff, and other people are just like, we want someone that knows how to use hand tools and like can stay for at least a month. So you have to like take the time to do your research and like think about like what Eva said, know what you want to get out of this experience, know what you're kind of looking for. It may not be exactly what you expect when you get there, but at least, you know, like Eva wanted to work with animals, so like, you know, I love kids, so I looked for farms that had families. And then once you narrow it down to like, you know, 3 or 4, you can email people, and sometimes they'll just say no, like we have 5 other woofers staying, we can't host another one, or we don't have too much going on right now, there's not going to be a lot for you to do. So narrow it down to like 4 or 5, email them, like tell them about yourself. For the one in Virginia, they like sent me an application, and it was kind of like what's your experience like, what do you value, why do you want to do this, just because they wanted to get a sense of like who I was, not because they were like, you know, selecting me. They just wanted to make sure I wasn't like a crazy person that wanted to live at their farm for free. And like, we really urge you to like clarify stuff. Like you saw with my experience in Nepal, like, you know, things weren't clarified that could have been clarified ahead of time. So ask questions, like ask about everything from where you're going to be staying to what you're going to be eating, because you don't want to travel across the world or across the country and get there and be like, oh,
I didn't plan for food.
Right.
I didn't plan to have to provide housing, so.
Or you're a cattle farm and I'm a vegetarian, or, you know, like, just, it doesn't hurt to just ask before you go, and clarify stuff. Because a lot, like, especially other countries, they want you to come. They're, like, excited about having you. Not always, but that's, like, true a lot of times. And so they will omit things, or farms that really need the help, they'll sometimes omit things that are kind of important, but that they don't want to say because they want you to come.
So one example I have of that is when I heard about WWOOFing, everybody was like, yeah, they provide your room and board, and then you just work on the farm. And we were like, great. But the first farm that we went to, they were like, we don't provide food, and you know, we don't really provide housing. And we were like, that's not what your blurb says. And so she was like, well, we already have an intern here. She's planning to be here till whenever. We can maybe put you in the camper. And we're like, okay, we can sleep in a camper. And listen, I have lived in the woods. I have slept outside with no tent, had bugs crawl all over me. I had a friend who had a snake arrive in a sleeping bag. And I walked into this camper, and I did not want to sleep there. It was moldy. I mean, it's the Pacific Northwest, so it was wet, and it was moldy, and it was just like the dankest, dirtiest thing you can imagine. And she was like, well, you know, it's just a little dirty, and it's like there's a hole in the floor, there were like spiders falling out of the ceiling. I'm not afraid of spiders, but like you really don't want them just hanging out all the time. So you do need to kind of like, even if it's awkward, just like, you know, have a conversation. So like, hey, somebody told me that you provide food, or like your blurb says you provide this. Like, I just want to make sure that you are still providing that. And they'll be like, yeah, sure, whatever, or no, not exactly anymore, our trailer blew up, or whatever.
Yeah, because sometimes, you know, like, they don't update it, you know, and things change. And also, like, WWOOFing it's just a way to connect you to the farm. It's not like, all the risks are on you. All the liability is on you in a sense that, like, if you go and you get there and it's like, this isn't what you said on the website, like, there's nothing you can do. You can't, like, be like,
force them to give you housing or food.
Right. You can't be like, well, this is what you said, because you're not paying for anything, and you can't email the WWOOF website and say, this isn't what I expected. Like,
right.
You know, things aren't always what
you
you expect.
Email back and said, well, you should have lowered your expectations.
Yeah. Yeah, this isn't like a program in a sense. You know, you're doing it on your own. It's not.
It's an association, essentially. It's not even really an organization.
Exactly.
There's nothing organized about it except for the catalog. It's really just an association. And the other thing she left, and I wish I could have told her, but like, your membership will be like 20. I don't know if they're still doing this, but like if you apply with like 2 people, you get a discount on your membership. So it's like $20 a person and like $30 for a couple. So
yeah. Every country is different, though. I think Costa Rica is only like $12.
Oh, okay.
Instead of 20. Yeah. Yeah, we put up here, it's work, not free room and board. Because there are people that, you know, try to, like, do this as a lifestyle and just go from farm to farm and kind of, like, bum off of these people. Not that there's a lot of people that do that, but, like, you know, you should do it because you want to learn something and you want to work, not because you're just looking for a free place to stay.
What are the time frames? I know obviously it's all about what farm and contact and you work things out with them. But would you say if I do research right after school ends, is this something that could, depending on the farm, be possible for the winter session?
Oh, absolutely.
Depends on where you go. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can definitely find a farm to do it, because I mean, that's when I did mine, was essentially, the only times we ever were there were February through the beginning of April. So, I mean, that's spring session, but I mean, you could totally do it in the winter. Like, I know farms have a lot, a lot of farms have a lot to do over the winter time too. So.
I just want to point out, like, there are farms locally, and you don't even need to, like, make a commitment. There's a couple within a few miles of campus. You can just show up and do work for them, and get your feet wet that way.
Sure.
Or come to our garden.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're just looking to work in a garden, we got a great one on campus. It's a great experience. Yeah. But it is an adventure, so just approach it as an adventure and prepare to get your hands dirty.
Thank you.
Sorry I didn't have more pictures. I have a really great picture of like me French kissing a cow. Sounds really good.
And this workshop was videotaped, so it will be on our website. It's
Put your name in that contact.
Oh, it's
UniStudentGardeningClass.org. So if you want to watch it again.
Yeah, email on me, and then you can put them in the back. Eva,
Do you want to give a plug for Dumpster Detour?
I do. So how many of you are undergraduates? Awesome. How many of you live on campus? Awesome. Even more awesomer. So when you guys are moving out this spring,